Report conversation. The story began on a cold autumn evening at Heathrow Airport in London, where passengers hurried toward the departure gates for Flight R907, a luxury non-stop flight to New York. Among the well-dressed travelers stood Amelia Carter, a quiet woman in her early 30s wearing a simple navy blue coat. She carried only a small leather handbag and a silver locket around her neck. No one paid much attention to her. She looked like just another business traveler. Across the VIP lounge, billionaire aviation tycoon Victor Ashford laughed with his glamorous fiancée, Isabella Monroe, surrounded by bodyguards and executives. News reporters waited outside to photograph the famous businessman, who was known worldwide for his private airline empire and luxurious lifestyle. The media called him the king of the skies. But hidden beneath Victor's charming smile was a secret that had destroyed countless lives. 10 years earlier, Amelia's father had worked as the chief aircraft engineer for Ashford Airlines. He was an honest man who discovered that Victor had ordered cheap counterfeit aircraft parts to increase profits. When Amelia's father threatened to expose the truth, Victor framed him for negligence after a tragic plane crash killed dozens of innocent passengers. The courts believed Victor. The newspapers called Amelia's father a murderer. Unable to bear the shame, he took his own life. Amelia lost everything: her father, her home, her future, and a family name. She spent the next decade studying aviation engineering, aviation law, cybersecurity, and corporate finance. She never forgot the man responsible. Tonight, fate had placed both of them on the same aircraft. Victor never recognized the quiet woman boarding behind him. As Flight AR907 climbed into the night sky above the Atlantic Ocean, passengers enjoyed champagne, gourmet meals, and live piano music in first class. Flight attendants smiled while soft golden lights reflected from Earth's Alglacis. Victor announced to several investors that tomorrow he would finalize the biggest airline merger in history, making him one of the richest men in the world. Amelia quietly listened. She wasn't interested in money. She wanted justice. Hours into the flight, the captain announced mild turbulence. At that exact moment, every screen inside the aircraft suddenly changed. Instead of the airline's entertainment system, an old security video appeared. Victor froze. The recording showed him meeting secretly with suppliers years ago. His own voice echoed throughout the cabin. Replace the certified parts. Nobody will notice. Passengers stared in disbelief. Executives looked at Victor with confusion. He shouted at the cabin crew to turn off the screens. Nothing happened. Another recording appeared. Emails, bank transfers, signed contracts, hidden surveillance footage. Every piece of evidence Amelia had spent 10 years collecting now appeared before hundreds of witnesses. Victor screamed that everything was fake, but Amelia calmly stood up. Her voice remained steady. My name is Amelia Carter. 10 years ago, you destroyed my father's life because he refused to help you murder innocent people for profit. The cabin became silent. Several passengers recognized the name from the old crash investigation. Victor's face turned pale. He ordered his bodyguards to stop her. But before they could move, two passengers quietly stood from their seats. They introduced themselves as international aviation investigators who had been secretly traveling under assumed identities after receiving anonymous evidence weeks earlier. Amelia had planned everything. The aircraft itself had become the safest courtroom in the world. No one could escape. The investigators revealed they had already coordinated with authorities in the United Kingdom and the United States. The moment the aircraft landed, police would be waiting. Victor desperately tried to access his satellite phone. It had already been disabled under legal authority. He attempted to bribe the investigators. They ignored him. His fiancée, Isabella, looked at him in horror. She had believed every lie he had ever told. One by one, Victor's own executives admitted they had helped hide evidence under pressure. Several passengers recorded every confession on their phones. News organizations around the world began receiving encrypted files automatically uploaded from Amelia's secure servers. By the time the aircraft crossed into North American airspace, Victor Ashford's empire had already begun collapsing. Stock prices crashed. Government agencies launched emergency investigations. Ashford Airlines suspended operations. Investors abandoned the company within hours. Victor watched helplessly as everything he had built through greed disappeared before the plane even landed. For the first time in his life, money couldn't save him. As dawn painted the horizon with shades of gold and crimson, Flight R907 began its descent toward New York. The captain announced that law enforcement officials would board immediately after arrival. The aircraft touched the runway smoothly. Instead of applause, complete silence filled the cabin. The doors opened. Federal agents entered first. Behind them stood British investigators carrying international arrest warrants. Victor was handcuffed in front of every passenger. Camera flashes exploded outside the aircraft windows as journalists captured the downfall of the world's most powerful airline billionaire. Before being escorted away, Victor looked back at Amelia. "You ruined my life." Amelia answered without anger. "No, Victor. You ruined your own life the day you chose greed over innocent people." He lowered his head. For the first time, he had no words. Months later, Amelia's father was officially cleared of every accusation. Governments reopened the crash investigation. Families of the victims finally learned the truth. Compensation funds were created for every affected family. Ashford Airlines disappeared forever. Its headquarters were converted into an aviation safety research center dedicated to preventing future tragedies. Amelia was invited to speak before international aviation organizations. She refused fame and fortune, accepting only one request: that every future aircraft engineer be taught that integrity is worth more than wealth. On the anniversary of her father's death, Amelia visited a quiet memorial overlooking an airport runway. She placed his old engineer's badge beside a single white rose. Another aircraft lifted gracefully into the sky. This time she smiled. Not because revenge had brought happiness, but because justice had finally allowed the innocent to fly without carrying the weight of a lie. And somewhere beyond the clouds, she believed her father was finally at peace.